Vikram. I'm editor at National Book Trust India, and I'm also the project head of this PM UI scheme. And it is indeed our pleasure and our privilege to start the series of masterclasses with the distinguished Shri Kulpreet Yadav ji. We had an inaugural session on 12th January, but from today on weekly basis, we would be having these classes that would be covering particular topics. And I would like to communicate you to our young authors that if, whether you are writing in the genre of fiction or whether you are writing the genre non-fiction, yeah, all these classes would be of benefit to you all, because ultimately they are talking about the creative process. They would be talking about the entire the dilemmas of negotiating with your plot, with your theme, and how to translate them well into a well-read book. We have Shri Kulpreet Yadav. He is a product of the Naval Officers Academy, and he has spent 2 decades as an officer in uniform and has successfully commanded 3 ships in his career. Since his retirement as commandant from the Indian Coast Guard in 2014, he has authored several books in diverse genres, including espionage, true crime, war history, and romance. Winner of the Best Fiction Author Award for Murder in Baharganj and espionage novel at the Gurgaon Literary Festival in 2018, Kulpreet is also an actor, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. He lives with his family in Delhi, and his latest book is called The Battle of Rezangla. And for the information of our audience here, The Battle of Rezangla, its Hindi edition, is going to be published by National Book Trust India. So, Shri Yadav, our it's going to be, I would say, it's a historic event in itself. It's a pan-India crowd. They are young, they are budding. When we say YUVA, it is also an acronym of young, upcoming, versatile authors. That's why YUVA, and there are 75 of them. They represent 22 languages, including English. Their focus area is national movement of India, and some of them are trying their hands in the fiction genre. Some of them are trying their hands in the non-fiction genre, and they are from Assam. Like there is a pioneer of independence movement, Gomdhar. It is this author from Assam who is working on that. Then there is an author from Bengal, Susmita Haldar. She's working on the topic Layak Gatha, in search of a hero. And there are tremendous amount of diversity of topics, naval mutiny, the unknown heroes, Siaram Singh, Mohan Singh, all throughout the country. And it's of course a historic opportunity for all of us. And I'm sure that we will all be learning a lot today and learning it together. The floor is all yours, Shri Yadav.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vikram. Greetings to all of you who are listening in. It's an incredible pleasure and an honor to be doing the first masterclass for this PM YUVA mentorship program. I would like to begin by congratulating each one of you for having been shortlisted for this one of its kind, first ever creative writing contest nationwide. This goes to show that you already have, the basic knowledge or the basic flair or the basic talent. What needs to be done now is perhaps to be given right tools and right information and right training to you, so that all of you can start on your career as a writer. In the 1 hour, to gainfully utilize this entire time, as Mr. Vikram was saying, I will be talking about the art of fiction writing in the first 30 minutes, after which I will entertain your questions. So please feel free to ask whatever you want after the first 30 minutes are over. Now, the art of fiction writing is, of course, a very, very vast subject. I'll try to do justice as much as I can in the next 30 minutes. Um, and I'll be covering this topic under various subheads. These subheads are the difference between fiction and non-fiction, fiction writing based on length, type of fiction based on the genres, difference between popular fiction and literary fiction, elements of a fictional story, dialogues and description, how to write them well, how to balance them, the importance of editing and how to go about doing it, the importance of reading and reviewing different books, and I'll end with a thank you note. So let me start with my first subtopic for today, that is difference between fiction and non-fiction. Now, most of you must be aware, but just to put things in right perspective, fiction means all imagination. It's an alternate universe you create of people, of their problems, and as the story progresses, these people take certain actions, and all this is just based on what you see in your mind and you write it down on paper. Non-fiction, the opposite of this, these are facts, these are things which actually exist. And broadly speaking, non-fiction we can divide in two parts. You have non-fiction general writing, and you have non-fiction academic books. Now, academic books, everyone knows, but what is non-fiction general writing? You have autobiographies, you have self-help books, you have travel writing, and all sorts of writing which is based on facts. I'm going to be restricting myself to fiction writing because that is the scope of my talk today. So let us try to understand what is fiction writing based on length. When I say length, what I mean is the number of words that you use. All of us understand that we have novels and we have short stories, but what is the length? Novel ideally is something that is 40,000 words plus. Anything that is 40,000, less than 40,000 words is not a novella. It is not called a novel, beg your pardon, it is called a novella. And what is a short story? A short story is something that is in the word length of 1,000 to 12,000. Now, there is no rule of thumb here. This is what most people agree, that any creative writing that you do, which is from 1,000 to 12,000 words, that becomes a short story. 12,000 words to 40,000 words becomes a novella, and 40,000 words plus becomes a novel. That means anything that is less than 1,000 words, we don't call that a short story. We don't call it a short fiction. There's a name for that, and that is called as short fiction or flash fiction. So if you end up writing a story which is less than 1,000 words, now you know it is called as flash fiction, or it is called a short story. Further down, you have 500-word story, you have a 100-word story, you have a 50-word story, you have 20-word, 10-word, and the shortest short story in the world is 6-word short story. You can write a story in 6 words as well. I will not go into the details of examples. After this session, perhaps you can look up on the net and read it for yourself. So this is fiction writing based on length. Let me briefly touch upon fiction writing based on genres. Now, some of you, or maybe all of you, might be knowing what is genres, but let me just explain briefly. Genres are the categories under which we put the books. You have, for example, you have horror writing, you have romance, you have science fiction, you have crime writing, you have all these kind of different categories, a thriller, etc. So this is called as, these are the genres when it comes to fiction writing. There must be some confusion in the minds of a lot of people, because I keep getting this question to all the festivals that I go, particularly, that what is the difference between popular fiction and literary fiction? Now, it is important for us to understand this. Popular fiction is also called as commercial fiction. So these are the stories that are written exclusively for entertainment. These stories are basically plot driven, and these are the stories which are consumed by masses at large. I'll give you some examples later. Literary fiction is not plot driven. Literary fiction is a character driven story, and that is not for entertainment. That is mainly to analyze the society, analyze the politics of the society, and be critical to whatever is happening around you. Literary fiction also is kind of experimental. You imagine things in a very original and unique way. You push, you try to push the boundaries of imagination, you try to push the boundaries of language. And in a way, literary fiction, I can sum up by saying that it is rooted in reality, whereas popular fiction is popular. So it is a kind of entertainment book, and it is an escape. So this is the difference between popular fiction and literary fiction. Literary fiction does not sell that well in the market, which is why the governments and the various organizations, they institute awards and residencies and other programs to promote this kind of writing, because this kind of writing actually helps us in understanding the human condition in a better way. I'll give some examples. So when we say popular fiction, I can give you two examples that straight away come to my mind. You have Chetan Bhagat, you have Amish. These are popular fiction writers. I also write and dabble in popular fiction space, though I do non-fiction writing as well. Literary fiction examples could be Arundhati Roy, could be Salman Rushdie, etc. That brings me to the major portion of today's talk, and I hope this is going to be very useful for those of you who are planning to write fictional stories or fictional novels. And this subtopic is elements of a fictional story. Now, some people say there are 4 elements of a story, some say there are 5, there are people who say there are 6. So there is no, once again, rule of thumb here. We are in a creative space. You can't, put a boundary on creative space and imagination. But most people agree that when it comes to elements, there are basically 5 elements to writing a fictional story. And these elements are: number 1, character; number 2, plot; number 3, setting; number 4, conflict; and number 5, point of view. Now, I'll just spend about, let's say, about 6 to 7 minutes to explain very briefly what this means. Character, I'm sure all of us know. Characters are people who are there in the story. They populate the story. You have something known as protagonist, who's your hero. You have something known as the antagonist, who's the villain. You have other characters, secondary characters in the story, etc. So characters are people who drive the story forward by taking actions, and that is why they're very important. Now the question is, as a creative writer, how do you create interesting characters? One of the simplest things that you can do is to create characters who look and who feel real. So when you say real characters, it means they have a good side to them. They also have flaws and bad side to them, right? So characters are conflicted in that sense. How to write a character? It has taken me a long time and a lot of training and a lot of feedback from people to understand how to actually develop and write characters. And here is what I've learned. First, you need to understand in your head, who is your character? What is this person like? Is this person tall? Is he short? What kind of hair does he have? What kind of eye color? What kind of habits, moods? What drives him? What sustains him? What frightens him? What is he excited about? What are his goals? What are his ambitions? What are his fantasies? Etc. You should know everything about your character because before you start putting that character in your story. And the easiest way to do this is to write maybe about 1.5 page for each of your character. Definitely for the top 4 or 5 characters that you have in your story, try to dedicate 1 page or 1.5 page. It's just writing down what is in your head about that character. So that first you understand who is this character. What really happens is when you understand your characters well, your characters behave in the story that you're going to write in the way that they're expected, that the readers will expect them to behave. And thereby, there is kind of an authentic feel to the fabric of your story. So it is important to sum up, you must create characters who are flawed, who are real, whom you understand well, and about whom you've spent considerable time in your head before you start writing them down. That's the first element of a fictional story. The second element is plot, as I said. Plot is nothing but the sequence of events in the story. Now, what is going to happen in the story when these characters take action, right? So that becomes a plot. The third element is called as setting. Now, setting is extremely important as well. And setting basically means it has got 2 dimensions, time and place. For example, you could write a story set in 19th century Vellore, Tamil Nadu, or you could write a story in 16th century Agra. You could write a story in January 2022 in Mumbai or New Delhi or Kolkata, right? As long as you're writing a contemporary story which is set in the present time, you really do not have to bother that much about setting because this is the world that we live in, so we understand it well. But if you're trying to set a story that is in the past or in the future, if you're writing a dystopian novel or a dystopian story, you need to research a lot. You need to understand if you're writing a 16th century story set in Agra, you need to understand what was the social fabric of that time, what kind of festivals people used to celebrate, what was the social hierarchy, what kind of food people used to eat, what kind of cultures and traditions that were popular at that time, what kind of clothes people used to wear, etc. And by doing this research, you will be able to impart that kind of an authentic flavor in the setting, which will actually add to the overall appeal and impact of your book. So we've done 3 elements of the story. First is character, second is plot, third is setting. Now that brings me to fourth one, which is conflict. Conflict is essentially the soul of the story. So in any story, we have the main character, as I said earlier, protagonist, and that protagonist is facing some or the other crisis in his or her life. That crisis, which is the problem that the characters that your protagonist is facing, this protagonist is going to take actions to solve this crisis. This crisis is called as conflict. So this is the conflict in your protagonist's life that through the course of your story, you're trying to solve. Now, broadly speaking, there are 2 kinds of conflict. One is an internal conflict, the other one is an external conflict. External conflict is when there is an antagonist. So your protagonist is the hero of the story. He's trying to achieve something, but there is a man standing in his path, which is the villain. So that is the antagonist. So this kind of a conflict is called as man versus man conflict. You have the second conflict, as I said, internal conflict, which basically means man versus himself. This conflict is called man versus himself. I'm sure you'll agree with me that in many circumstances, when you're facing a problem in your life, part of your mind wants to do something, but the other part of your mind wants you to do something else, right? So you are against yourself. This is called as man versus himself. For example, in most of the romance stories, you may not really have an antagonist, right? It is just about two or three people and about their lives and about the problems and what they're trying to solve. So protagonist is trying to solve something, but he's not able to solve it because of his own conflicted mind. This is called as an internal conflict. External conflict, so I can give you the best example that everybody can understand, and that is Ramayana. So in Ramayana, Ram was the protagonist and Ravan was the antagonist. So Ram was trying to do something, which is to rescue his wife from the clutches of Ravan, but Ravan was the antagonist who's standing in right in that path. So this is a typical man versus man conflict. And conflict, as I said, is the soul of a story. The deeper the conflict, the more interesting the story. So when you tomorrow start writing a story, try to give your protagonist a massive problem, right? If he has a big problem, then he'll have to take big actions and there's going to be big failure. And then he's going to bounce back again and try to do it again and again. Again, he's going to fail as the process goes forward until reach the climax where in most stories, that person is likely to win. So give him a deep conflict. That is the fourth element of the story. Now I'll come to the fifth element of the story, and that is called the point of view. This is very, very important, particularly for those writers who are at the beginning of your career, like most of you. So point of view, so you have first person point of view, second person point of view, and third person point of view. I'll keep it very simple because it can get sometimes a little bit overwhelming and complicated. First person point of view is when you tell the story from the point of view of a single person who is I. I'll give you an example. Okay, here's the example. I'm making it up as I'm talking to you. I go to a park. I find my friend Rohan sitting there. I look at my friend. He appears to be in deep trouble. Now, this is an example of first person point of view. This entire story is being told from the point of view of I, that person. Vis-a-vis, before I tell you what is second person point of view, let me tell you first what is third person point of view. Third person point of view is when you tell the story from the point of view of other characters as well. Let me give you the same example. Instead of I, now this becomes Kulpreet. So Kulpreet goes to the park. Kulpreet finds his friend Rohan sitting there. Kulpreet looks at Rohan and thinks Rohan is in trouble. Rohan looks at Kulpreet and thinks, oh my God, I'm so fortunate my best friend has come. Now all my trouble will be taken care of. Have you seen the difference? In this point of view, you are telling the story from different characters' point of view. This is called as the third person point of view. It is most popular because it gives a lot of room to the writers to get into the minds of other characters and show the story to the readers. And also, it gives them power to go in the backstory of different characters instead of just one character. The second person point of view is a little complicated. I'll try to make it very simple. Second person point of view is when you make the reader part of the story. You pick the reader and put it in the center of the story. Let me give the same example. Now, so second person point of view is always starts with you, right? Because you're talking to the reader. You go to the park. You find your best friend Rohan sitting there. And you wonder, why is Rohan looking like this or behaving like this? You don't know what to do next. So it's all you. This is called second person point of view. Most of the writers who are learning, they mix up all three. And the problem with mixing up these three is that the reader gets terribly confused. And it is also very difficult for the writer to get a feedback and then to change point of view, because then changing the whole story, it becomes a very laborious task. So before you start, you should be very clear in your head. You want to write a first person point of view, second person point of view, or third person point of view. Let me make it easier for you. About 60 to 70% stories that are written there are in third person point of view. About 35% of them might be in first person point of view, and just 1 or 2% is in second person point of view. So keep that in mind. I think I finished all the 5 elements of the story. Let me look at the time. Yeah. Yeah, okay. We started about 7 minutes late, so we do have about 7 more minutes. Um, Let me now come to dialogues and description. Now, in fiction writing, these two things become very important because, unlike nonfiction, which seldom has dialogues, fiction actually thrives on dialogues, and there's a fair amount of description as well. Now, how much description to have and how much dialogues to have is something that writers always keep grappling with. As far as I'm concerned, my current percentage is I would like to have 60% dialogues and 40% description. I think it works well with my writing. But I tend to believe now that I would like to perhaps shift to 70% dialogues and 30% description. So this is something that you get with practice. How is your storytelling going to help in the reader's understanding your story? So what kind of balance you need between description and dialogue? One of the problem with description is, particularly, as I said, if your setting is in past, or if you're writing a dystopian novel, or if you've done research for your writing and you've acquired a lot of newfound knowledge, so there's a tendency for a writer who's at the beginning of his career to put all that information into, I beg your pardon, into the writing, into the story as part of description. Now, as a writer, you're very excited because all this is information that you've gained, and you are wondering that perhaps my reader will be impressed. But actually, this comes in the way of the reader appreciating your story. So always be very judicious with putting the research that you've done as part of a description. Otherwise, too, please try to keep description only to the extent that it helps your plot, it helps in consolidating the actions of your characters, etc. Do not just go on a tangent and keep describing things which are not really important to the story, because then the reader will give up reading your story. As far as dialogues are concerned, try to write conversational kind of a language in dialogues, even if you write literary fiction, because dialogues should feel that two people are really talking. And when people talk, unless it is a formal environment, it's a very casual kind of conversation. So try to keep it as real as possible. I'll give you an example. If a husband comes home after his office at, let's say, 7 o'clock in the evening or 8 o'clock in the evening, and he knocks at the door and his wife opens. So don't write, something like, greetings to you, Mrs. So-and-so. How good or bad was your day? Something like this. Now, this is not something that a husband coming home would speak. Perhaps a husband coming home would speak, hi, honey, how are you? Hope everything's okay. Something like this. So when it comes to dialogues, try to keep it very, very conversational and real. When it comes to description, please don't show off. Try to restrict your description as much as you can, and try to write it in such a way that it enhances the impact of your story more than anything else. Okay, so moving on, the next subtopic is editing. Very, very important. You've written your story, and but now you really have got work to do. Writing a story is pleasurable. It's a fantastic experience, but editing is work, right? So editing is painful for all of us. It is painful for me even now after writing 14 books. So what you need to do when it comes to editing is, once you've finished writing your book, try to give some time off. Try to give yourself some time off from the story, whether it's a short story or a novel, maybe days, weeks, months, whatever makes you comfortable, so that when you come back, you look at your own story with fresh set of eyes. That's extremely, extremely important. And when you do that, you will find lots of things which are really not required for the story, at which point you can remove them. You will find grammatical mistakes, you can fix them. You will find certain dialogues are not working, you can remove them as well. You will find sometimes it's all looking too crammed up on the page, and the paragraphs are too long, so you can break them up so that there's more white space, and it is, it appears more breathable, etc. But one editing round will not work. You'll have to do this repeatedly. And like any creative pursuit, you can endlessly improve your product, right? But at some point, you'll have to stop. So that's the calling that you have to take maybe after 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, depending on your own temperament and your own satisfaction quotient. At some point, you'll have to stop and say, this is how it is. At that stage, if you have some beta readers, people whom you trust, and these people ideally should not be the people that you're romantically involved with. These people should not be your family members. These people should be, ideally, if you can get strangers to look at your work and give you feedback, they will be most unbiased. But if you give it to your family members, read, or the people that you're romantically involved with, they will read it and they will say that this is the greatest piece of writing that they've seen, that they've read in their life. And the fact is that they won't be lying. When people like you or people love you, they like and love you so much that they will be reading that and judging that through a bias, right? And they may not be able to give you any constructive feedback. So try to take feedback from people whom you do not know or you do not know that well. In fact, one of the excellent things can be done. Now we're starting off on this fantastic journey of you 75 budding writers under the aegis of such a reputed and old um, organization like NBT. Maybe you people can make a group among yourselves, and since you don't know each other so well, and then you can exchange your stories with each other and give constructive feedback. It'll immensely help. After that, you can submit your work to the publishers, and if it is accepted, I'm sure there will be editor there as well, and they will associate with you, and more changes will happen, and it'll improve. That brings me to I just have about a minute. Importance of reading and reviewing. Now, one of the myths that is out there, particularly among younger writers, is that you should not read someone else's work, because if you start reading someone else's work, then you'll start looking at the world with similar eyes. Now, this is an absolute myth. It doesn't work that way at all. In fact, you can be reading 3 books at the same time and writing your own book. It is not going to change anything. Your voice will always remain original. Let me give you a very simple example for you to understand. So, for example, if you go to your friend's house and your friend has made a very, very good dish and you've loved that dish, and you ask your friend to teach you, and he takes you to the kitchen and teaches you to make that, let's say, egg dish or a paneer dish, a simple dish. And thereafter, when you try to make that dish in his kitchen using the same ingredients and same utensils, the result will be slightly different. So everyone is original. Everyone's effort, when put in the right direction, gives a very original product. So don't worry about reading other people's work. In fact, it'll help you immensely. It'll broaden your horizon. It'll help you seeing people and conflicts and so many layers uh, on the society with newer set of eyes, which will help you, critically look at the things around you. And all this experience will help you in becoming better writer. Wherever possible, try to review the stories that you read, because when you review on your blogs, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, it puts certain kind of pressure on you, because now you'll be talking about someone else's book, someone else's work. So that's going to force you to read someone else's work with that extra patience and extra concentration. Please do that. And when you review, please don't be harsh to someone else's work. Give constructive feedback. But also, if you do find some flaws which are according to you flaws, which are not working for you, you can politely mention them as well. With that, I think I've finished my quota of 30 minutes. I wish this was longer, but I would like to understand from you what you want to know from me. So we've come to the question and answer session, and I give it back to you, Mr. Vikram.
Snehaji will moderate the
Yeah,
question
yeah.
answers.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Kulpreet sir, for guiding us and telling us about the art of fiction, writing fiction. So beautiful, especially those 5 points. And so today we can't miss this opportunity to ask questions directly from Kuldeep sir. We have many young, curious minds present here. If anyone wants to ask question, please press the raise hand option, and I'll call his or her name, and they can ask the question one by one. So please.
There are some already in the chat box, Nehaji.
Okay, so what do you think about writer's block, sir? Okay, I think he's asking about the writer's block, sir.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So writer's block is something which affects all of us, I think, in varying degrees. Um, I've not really experienced a serious writer's block. I think I've been very fortunate, but I've seen my friends struggle with this. And the simplest formula to deal with writer's block is to have faith in yourself. Um, Try to do physical exercise. You'll find this crazy, but I think it works a lot. Try to be physically very active. Try to go for a jog. Try to take off, mind off from writing or pressures related to writing. When you do physical exercise, you run, you jog. You have those hormones and those things releasing in your body, and you will have a dash of positive energy. Because when it comes to writer's block, what really needs to be done is you need to start. Right? You're just stuck at a point, and the moment you are unstuck because of maybe exercise sometimes, you will be able to go ahead in that direction. If the exercise doesn't work for you, there are of course many other things. You can go spend some time with your parents or your boyfriends and girlfriends. You can undertake travel to a beautiful place. I mean, India, the whole world. I mean, but we're talking about India here. We've got such beautiful cities. We've got such beautiful customs, culture. The diversity of people, etc. So, yeah, I think these things should help.
Okay, sir. I think next one is Madalsha Mani Tripathi. Madalsha ji, please ask your question.
थैंक यू मैम एंड थैंक यू सर। आपने आज जो भी हमें बताया वो काफ़ी ज्ञानवर्धक था। सर मैं बस जानना चाहती हूँ कि सर प्लीज़ नॉन फिक्शन के बारे में कुछ इलेबोरेट करिए, बिकॉज मेरा जो टॉपिक है वो नॉन फिक्शन से रिलेटेड है। जी सर।
ओके, नॉन फिक्शन से रिलेटेड है तो आपने हिंदी में पूछा है तो मैं हिंदी में ही जवाब दूंगा। मैं इंग्लिश में इसलिए बोल रहा था बिकॉज हमारे देश में सब तरह के पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, बहुत लोग हिंदी नहीं समझ पाते हैं, पर आपके सवाल का मैं खास तौर पे हिंदी में जवाब दूंगा। सी, नॉन फिक्शन इज जनरली रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड। आप किस तरह का नॉन फिक्शन लिख रहे हैं अभी?
सर मैं मणिपुर के एक स्वतंत्रता सेनानी है टिकेंद्रजीत सिंह, तो मैं उनके ऊपर लिख रही हूँ।
बहुत अच्छी बात है। मैंने अभी एक बैटल ऑफ रेजांगला करके 1962 की वॉर के ऊपर एक किताब लिखी है, तो मैंने काफी रिसर्च किया था। इसमें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज होता है रिसर्च करना, और रिसर्च में मेहनत लगती है, टाइम लगता है, आपको जितने भी रिसोर्सेस होते हैं उनको खंगालना पड़ता है, ट्रैवल करना पड़ता है, कई बार एक्सपेंडिचर भी होता है। और जितना आप ज्यादा रिसर्च करेंगे उतना ज्यादा आपके जहन में उस टॉपिक के बारे में ज्ञान आता जाएगा, और उसके बाद जब आप लिखेंगे तो वो बड़ा फ्री फ्लोइंग होगा, वो ऑटोमेटिक होता जाएगा। जैसे मैं अपनी बात कर सकता हूँ, मैंने 2 नॉन फिक्शन किताबें लिखी हैं। जो पिछली वाली बैटल ऑफ रिजांगला, तो बैटल ऑफ रिजांगला के लिए तकरीबन मैंने 2.5 साल में से 2 साल केवल रिसर्च किया, और ऐसा रिसर्च करके हो गया था कि मेरे को कोई सोते सोते भी उठा देगा और बोलेगा फलानी चीज के बारे में बताओ, इस घंटे पे क्या हुआ, बिकॉज वो 7 घंटे की लड़ाई थी, तो मैं इमीडिएटली बता पाऊंगा। बॉटम लाइन ये है कि आपको रिसर्च जितना ज्यादा हो सकता है उतना करना चाहिए, उससे आपकी किताब बहुत बढ़िया बनेगी। मेरी तरफ से आपको शुभकामनाएं और गुड विशेस।
धन्यवाद सर।
Thank you, sir. So next question is from Aditya Suryavanshi. He asks, sir, can you suggest some exercises we can do so that all our characters sound different and not the same person speaking? मेरे ख्याल से हम एक ही राइटर लिख रहा है और डिफरेंट कैरेक्टर्स को लिख रहा है, तो कहीं ना कहीं वही डायलॉग्स, वही एक सेम फीलिंग के साथ लिखता है, तो उसके लिए आप क्या सजेस्ट करेंगे?
I think it's a very smart question, I must say. And I think when I was talking about writing about characters and understanding characters in your mind, I think I have really touched on this. But just to reiterate once again, the best way is for you to see those characters in your mind. And I told you about doing a character sketch of, let's say, 1.5 page for each of your top 5, 6, 7 characters. In addition to that, what you can do is you can go to the net and you can, do an image search and try to find out which unknown person actually looks like the character that you have in mind, and try to save those only on your computer for your personal consumption. And when you do your character sketch, put that on top of that page. And when you keep reading about these characters again and again over a period of time before writing story, I'm sure each one of them will have a different voice. But good question.
Okay, so the next one is from Buddhipta ji. Sir, what about the fictions based on true events, real characters, and based on historical data and evidence? So anything जो भी थोड़ा inspired होते हैं fiction में, तो उस पे आप क्या कहें?
So that's a very established genre. It is called as historical fiction. You have historical fiction, you have mythological fiction. In fact, Amish writes mythological fiction. So basically, what this means is the characters are real, but none of the events are real, right? So you could write, for example, a story set in, I've been saying 16th century Agra, so let's just stick to that. You can write one of the Mughal period stories, but you can write the characters might be real, the situation, everything is real, but for what is happening around them. It's an entertainment kind of a story, and you can write it.
Okay, sir. So next one is from Aarti. So when depicting internal conflict, we tend towards a descriptive monologue that can sometimes pull down the action of the story. Is there a way to navigate this?
Very good question once again. You see, internal monologue for trying to, deal with the conflict that is going on in your head, of course, is an essential part of your narrative. But as you've already said in your question, that you need to kind of truncate that, and you must try to reduce. What really happens is when you write it for the first time, you try to be very organic with your writing process. Whatever is coming to your mind, just keep writing that down. It is only later when you come with your fresh set of eyes, when you moved away from the story for a while, for a period of time, and when you come back, you'll automatically start seeing certain portions which are kind of dragging, they're pulling your story down. So you can fix it that time. Also, when you give it to people who are not related to you, as I said, unknown people who are genuine, who want to give you a constructive feedback, they will come up and say that, hey, this is becoming too much. You need to remove this. This monologue is going for 2 pages and not making any sense. It's a sudden break for me. I was enjoying the story so much, but this monologue going for so long has stopped. So these 2-3 things will help you. Even when with the publisher, the editor at your publishing house also might come back and say that here it is getting a little slower, and you can fix it.
Okay, so the next one is from Mr. Pradyam. So my book is narrated as a diary entry as well as consists of fiction dialogues as well. How do I blend my diary entry as well as dialogues lively?
Diary entry and dialogue. So what I understand is that you have written, you have not written it in the form of a book. You have written it in the form of a thought. I don't think this is a good base, fundamental base for you to build your story upwards from there. At best, these thoughts can sometimes be put in a new story that you might write. Don't think that whatever you've written in your diary has gone to waste. No. When you write, the very process of writing even a diary makes you a person who looks at everything with critical eyes. It's a development in your creative journey. So it is helping you. You can maintain your diary. But for you to write a story, it is always not just diary, but a lot of people do this. And I've written. Someone might say that I've written 10,000 words and it was a short story, so now I want to make a full novel out of it. It doesn't work that way. We must have the power to create new works, but we also must have power to let go things which we have created in the past. That's how you grow as a writer. I'll give you an example. I wrote my first book, which came out in 2006. It just did about mediocre business. In fact, I'm at a stage that I can almost say that it did not do that well that I was thinking. And I wrote my second book and I wrote my third book. I sent my second book to publishers and everybody rejected that book. I was in love with that book. It took me time for move to third book. I wrote my third book, and again, third book also was rejected by everyone. Till today, we are in 2022. Those 2 books are still in my computer. Nobody's read it. That world, those creators, those characters, their problems, they're just part of me. It hurts me a lot that this book should actually come out. in the book form. But I think that's where, if I try to do that, I think it will be a mistake. We must be proud of our creative outcomes, but at the same time, we should also have the power to disengage and move on, because only when you let go of the past can you move forward. So my recommendation would be, if you're not able to convert that into a story, don't worry too much about it. You've already gained from the process of writing your thoughts down and dialogues down. Get on with a new book.
Okay, sir, thank you. And next question is more about you, just from Kapil. I just read your tweet about writing 14 books and now you are starting new book. I want to know how to maintain your energy and writing taste in various ways, because I think I would be messed up if we write back-to-back books. Please elaborate. Thank really sir. Actually मैं भी आपके बारे में पढ़ी थी, आप नेवी में भी रहे हैं, एंटरप्रेन्योर भी हैं, आप ऑथर भी हैं. Actually, I really want to know how to maintain this energy, please.
So I think the starting point of anything that you want to do in your life is passion. I was in a very comfortable job. I was on a scale of a director. I was only 44 years old. I had such a long time to go. I could have just enjoyed my perks of car and office and salary, etc. But I had different passions, and I wanted to go on this experimental journey. So my passion was larger than the practical reality around me. And that is the reason I'm able to do these things. About startups and entrepreneurship, I must tell you that I'm so excited and so jealous of the younger generation that today it is possible for you to start a company from scratch and make it a $1 million, $1 billion company without really, having any investment. This was not possible 20 years back. You could not have started a company without money, but now you can. So I'm just trying to do my bit. I'm just trying to enjoy myself. And about the tweet about 15th book. So, there is a misnomer, particularly in India. Only in India I've seen this. I've traveled extensively abroad also. That a good writer is a writer who writes only fewer books in his lifetime. This is a complete myth and a complete lie. I'll give an example of one of the best romance writers of the world. Her name is Nora Roberts. She has sold more books than J.K. Rowling. She's, I think, the 4th largest selling writers of all times. And if you calculate the number of books that she has written and divided by the number of years, you'll probably come to 12 books every year, one book every month. And to tell you the truth, I'm a big fan and I read her books. She writes romance. She also writes dystopian fiction under a pen name called as J.D. Robb. I don't like the dystopian story that much, but I like romance stories that she writes. It's absolutely wonderful. It is possible. If you're passionate, if you're hungry, if you want to do something, if you want to learn from your mistakes, if you want to burn the midnight oil, if your creativity is not letting you sleep, I think you can do it and the world will be at your feet. You just have to start.
True, sir. The next one is from Akshat. How to capture the eccentricities of regional language in dialogue when writing in English?
Okay, that's a very good question. So what happens is, for example, if you're writing an English book and there's a requirement for you to write a Hindi dialogue, because Hindi in English, because, then only it will have that desired impact. I would say do it. I've done it at several places in Battle of Rizangla where I thought English is not able to convey that emotion. But at the same time, your readers have picked up an English book, and if they see a Hindi dialogue, they will not be able to understand. So within the bracket, you write the English version. Try to write most of your book in the language that you choose. For example, if you want to write a book in Bangla or in Malayalam or in Tamil or in Assamese or in Punjabi or Gujarati, whatever language, try to remain loyal to that language. Let's say you're writing a Marathi novel and there's a requirement for you to write an English dialogue, because in English only it will convey what you want to convey. You can use English and then within bracket you could write in Marathi. And same way, if you're writing an English book and if you feel that there is a Marathi character and this dialogue, these 3 words has to be in Marathi for that impact, you can do it. But try to keep the other language to the minimum. That's a simple rule.
Okay, sir. The next one is from Nisar Ahmed. He is asking, when we write fiction, we have the freedom to write, but when we are given a specific subject, there is injustice with fiction somewhere. Can it be called justice with fiction?
Well, it's a good question. Uh, yeah, it's absolutely true that if someone gives you uh, some kind of a topic or some kind of terms of reference, then of course you cannot go beyond that. But also, I think you can. It depends. If you, for example, if you're writing for a competition, then you will have to follow the rules because the organization has set up rules. But nothing stops you from writing your own book on whatever topic that you choose.
Okay, the next one is, sir, when writing fiction about real historical characters, what is the extent of creating freedom we can take?
Oh, you can take the entire freedom. If you call your book historical fiction and you write, for example, on India's struggle for independence, any period that you choose, uh, you can write whatever you want. You can make it as exciting as possible for yourself, and then when readers will read, they will find that alternate history which could have happened very exciting. So personally, I am not someone who's too much excited uh, about historical fiction, but this is a very big segment. A lot of people love it. So yes, go as much and as far away as possible to the original story.
Okay, sir, there are lots of questions. I think I'm asking as fast as I can. Which side of the story should we focus on when writing novels on the character of history?
Which side of, I didn't understand this. Which side of story should we focus on?
On when writing novels on the character of history.
So any character of history that has lived in the past. It depends on the genre that you're writing. If you're writing about, for example, if you're writing about independence struggle, and someone mentioned about a Manipuri freedom fighter, then of course you should not write that much about his personal story because you're writing about his freedom struggle. So the personal story can take a backseat. There could be marriage, there could be family, there could be children, whatever be the case. But his thoughts about freedom, his thoughts about the struggles that he's undertaking, and the actions that he's doing should be your primary objective. So it really depends on what you want to do, what your character is.
The next question is from Kapil Mewada. Actually, ये आजकल बहुत से युवा इसको suffer करते हैं. How to manage thoughts and time to write when we work in other jobs also. As I always think about writing poetry, but I also involve in my other works. Sometimes it creates problems in my life also. So please, sir.
I'll be sounding very old and probably sounding like my dad, when I say this, but where there is a will, there is a way. Because अगर आप कुछ करना चाहते हो, तो आप कर सकते हो. The only person who's going to stop you from achieving your dreams is you yourself. हम लोग blame ढूंढते रहते हैं. We say that we are poor, or we live in a small town, or I don't have a Apple laptop, or I don't have proper clothes, I don't have access, etc. All these are absolute lies that you've created for yourself. The only person standing between you and your dream is you yourself. So first sort yourself out. Stop hanging out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Don't spend 2 hours, 3 hours on that watching videos. And don't tell me you don't do that, because when I go to airport, I go to bus stop, I go wherever, I go to parks also. I find all youngsters continuously on the mobile looking at videos. So if you do that, obviously you'll not be left with any time. So it's all about strict regulation of time. I'm not saying don't watch social media. You do watch. I spend a lot of time on social media myself, but try to regulate your time, try to lead a disciplined life. And I'm doing it, and so can you. So many people are doing it.
It's already 4, but I think we can take 1 or 2 questions more. Sir, from Akshat, sir, could you suggest some good writing practices?
Very good question. I wish there was time for me to do this, because talking about doing something is very different than actually doing it. Practical is the most important. So I could have spearheaded a writing exercise, but I can give you some thoughts here. Try to pick up a chapter from one of your favorite books about those characters and what they're doing, and try to write it in your own way, in your own language, in a newer way. Set it in your own place, and try to make them do things that you feel that they should be doing instead of what the writer did. The second exercise that you can do is write short stories. pick up some of the name of the songs. These rap songs, English or Hindi, they have sometimes very interesting titles. Sometimes they are little not that much palatable, but whatever works for you, you can pick up that. You can pick up a topic of a book that you've not read and try to write, or you just read that blurb of the book and the name of the book and write a short story on it, let's say 2,000 words, and then read the book and see, try to compare what you've done. Have you done a better job? Was your heart pumping faster when you were reading your own story, or the writer has been able to do it well? So that way, when you compare with other people, you'll be able to learn better.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think we should, because of time shortage, I think we should sum up here. Thanks to all YUVA authors for joining us, and special thanks to Kuldeep sir from my side. Vikram sir, if you want to add something.
Thank you, Snehaji. And I think it has been a really very, very engaging and very interesting talk and interaction. And we are giving you these master classes. Our idea is to broaden up your mind. It's not that in one particular master class you will get something which would directly impact your own writing, but you broaden your mind, then you do further research, and then you improve upon your writing skills. It's our privilege that our director, Shri Yuvraj Malik, is here. And sir, under your dynamic leadership, all this project has been going on. And I personally today, I feel very happy that we have been able to launch this series of master classes. I would request you to give your thoughts on this occasion and do some the summing up. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikramji. Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Dear Yuva and all my colleague and training team. First of all, I convey my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to sir. You, in spite of so many commitments, you agreed on priority to share your precious time with us and guided our Yuva team. We are very grateful for that. Two things I would like to share with all my Yuva members is one, sir is a man of multiple facets. He's a very versatile man. So the trait which you carry with your name in Yuva, he is already versatile. So all these credits to his name is only because, as he said, that passion. If you go with passion, you go deep and deep and you get the pearl out of it. That's what theory I've seen, sir, working diligently in all the dimensions. Second thing, I have picked up his book when it was launched. Trust me, I finished the book day one and I started, and by morning I was over with it. Word by word, starting from forward till last, I've read. And if you have to really learn how to write, read that book, Rizangla. It's a very good narrative because I'm from army, I'm from infantry, I've seen that place, I've seen those battle conditions. And sir is from navy. How could he visualize that those dialogues and things, how actually happened, is tremendous. That is the kind of research you have to do for your project. And best thing is that he has written it simply. If you really want to learn how to write simply, that is the most difficult thing, and he has done the most difficult thing. He has written is very, very simple. A Sipahi of Indian Army can read it in Hindi and he enjoy it. That is the kind of standardization that has happened in that book, and very well researched. Must read for every young author who is doing. And very soon, maybe within this month, we are coming with Hindi edition also. आप लोग हिंदी इंग्लिश जिस भाषा में पढ़ेंगे, बाद में हम सब भाषाओं में भी लेके आएंगे, बट उसको पढ़िए. पूरा में नहीं पढ़ पा रहे हैं तो चैप्टर जरूर पढ़िए, ताकि आपको ये पता चले कि सिंपल कैसे लिखा जाता है. Sir, thank you so much for that wonderful book and your inputs. Even I learned a lot. I was listening. I am in service, so I can't write much. Like you can have the freedom to write all dimensions, but very grateful and so much of experience and wisdom which you have shared with our young team. We are personally grateful and we'll look forward for your guidance in future also.
Thank you very much. It'll be an honor. Thanks.